surrogacy feels both like a very modern business and also a little archaic. Listen, I don't have a leg to stand on with criticism here because we used a sperm donor. So, but at the same time, there's a little bit of Handmaid's Tale vibes to it, and it's hard to deny. So tell me about the politics of this as you see it, or as you explored it.
It's so funny. Ashley Moreco, one of the surrogates I spoke to, talked about, I'm not a handmaid, I'm a businesswoman. I was able to keep my family afloat. My husband was out of work and my kids got to stay in their private Christian school the whole time. I was able to pay off my college debt. So for someone like her, or maybe someone like Katie Mason, who was able to take her whole family on a trip to Hawaii with the money she got from surrogacy, they see it as kind of the ultimate manifestation of their autonomy. They're able to take control. They're able to spend time with their kids while being pregnant. They're able to, work from home, especially because the workplace is them. They're able to work from self, really. And it's interesting because I think a lot of the left-right politics kind of get turned on its head for this one. For example, you might think of surrogacy as a left-wing cause. Ashley's a pro-life surrogate. You know what I mean? And then on the far left, I talked to a few feminists who find surrogacy absolutely abhorrent. They don't mince words about it. I talked to Anna Slats, who told me that surrogacy is evil, and not just because because it makes she called it a subclass of purchasable female assets. And that's why for her,
wow,
it's not, if that girl wants to do it, that's fine. It's not my business. She sees it as this negative externality writ large for society. And then I also spoke to this woman, I'm going to butcher her name, Kasia Ekman. She is a Swedish author. She wrote Surrogacy, Prostitution, and the Split Self. And she's really interesting. She sees surrogacy and prostitution as two sides of the same coin. It's sort of your Madonna whore complex. Surrogacy offers reproduction without sex, sort of like your...
that's really smart.
And then, it's really smart. And then prostitution offers sex without reproduction. So she basically thinks you can't be for one without the other. I tend to think there's a little more gray area there because if you're thinking about which means to which ends, I think it's a little different. But in her mind, she basically thought both were objectifying women and frankly should be abolished. So you see a huge range on this issue and not a lot of movement in terms of people changing their minds or being convinced.
Yeah, so it's basically falling along the same debate lines as sex work and as the battle over whether that should be legal or how it should be legal and all of that. It's really interesting.
And then you have the subset of people who say, wait a minute, we're forgetting a central character, and that's the baby. What's their choice? The baby.
Well...
no one gets to choose to be born. So it's a little bit like, well, don't we all kind of have that kind of applies to everyone. And I think there's some people who would argue that the baby connects with the woman who's carrying it in a certain way. I didn't, to be fair, delve so deeply into that. But you could only go so far into preconception. I mean, I was going to get to like the creation of the universe if I went much deeper. So I had to call it at some point, and we decided it was when the embryo gets in the uterus.
I mean, listen, that makes a lot of sense. When a baby's born, they are familiar with the gestator's voice and movements and it is complicated, but it's a little bit, you could talk yourself in some ways into almost thinking that like only rich people with 3-bedroom houses should be able to have children because that's the most ideal place for a kid to be born. And it's like a lot of families aren't the ideal perfect setup and yet make a great family and have great kids and stuff. And so I don't know. I can really see the surrogacy thing. I can see the arguments.
well, people talk about, do you want this to be your baby's origin story? And it's like, I don't want to know how I was conceived. It's
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't matter
after
so much.
prom, like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's not like everyone has this like beautiful story of their conception, like the night their parents got married. So I don't know. I tend to not buy into that as much. But it does get even more complicated than the debate around sex work, because of this idea of when does a life begin? And then, of course, because it takes 10 months to do it.